just get started. Welcome to session 5. We've got Charlie here for how to conduct user testing with people with disabilities. And stage's all yours.
Thank you, and welcome. Just a bit about me first. My name's Charlii Parker. I work with Intopia. I'm a senior researcher there. And basically, I work with people with disabilities and from minorities, and we do user testing. So we facilitate user testing. We have a panel of people where you can come to us and find people for user testing that are in those cohorts and things like that. I've been in the tech space for about 19 years now. Started out as a functional tester, slipped into some accessibility testing and some UX, went back to functional testing, but once you get bitten by the accessibility bug, you end up with the accessibility bug. For me, I appreciate accessibility, I appreciate WCAG, I don't love it, it's not what I live by, and I don't care about it, but I have to. For me, it's not about whether something meets standards. It's not about whether something is accessible by WCAG. I don't care if someone has a certificate to say that their website is accessible. I'm happy if anyone would like one once they've had an audit to print one out. You can have clowns, balloons, kittens. And I shouldn't say that because we actually do give certificates for accessibility. However, what I care about is that people can actually use what you're building and what you're designing. Because at the end of the day, that's actually what matters. Because when you've got someone who's a screen reader user who can't check out on your website, they don't care that you've got a certificate in the bottom of someone's drawer that said that your site was accessible on the 12th of October, 1984. So for me, testing with users with disability is key to making your product accessible. How many here are researchers? Excellent, we've got a few. How many of you test with people with disability? Excellent, I can leave now. My job here is done. Okay, so to convert people who aren't testing, because obviously the people who are testing are doing it, which is fantastic. Testing with people with disabilities is a key, as I said, to making your products accessible. But it's also often a barrier. So what often happens is you want to test with people with disabilities. You know it's important, but you're not sure how to start. You're not sure where to start. You're not sure where to find the people. And some inbuilt bias that you may or may not know that you have can stand in the way of you actually taking the leap and bringing those people in. So as children, many of us, and a lot of us haven't thought about it, but many of us when we were kids, we've seen somebody who is a wheelchair user. We've seen somebody who has a physical disability, and as a child, we look at them, we stare and we ask, and our parents say, don't look, don't stare. So from being kids, it's ingrained in us not to look and not to ask questions because we don't want to embarrass them and we don't want to embarrass ourselves. So that often as adults stands in our way of actually bringing those people in to our research. So you're missing out on that valuable input because you have a bias or a fear that you're not necessarily aware that you have. So it's just easier not to ask and to let the auditors do their job. The thing with auditing is a technical assessment. So technically, you might be accessible. According to somebody who is an auditor who uses a screen reader in a very technical fashion, by the book, they can get from point A to point B, and they've actually studied how to use a screen reader because they're not a screen reader user, so they've learnt to use it in a very technical fashion. So they know that if you do this particular shortcut, you'll be able to get from point A to point B. So it's not accessible, it's just a shortcut that they only know about. So I used to work for a vision-related organisation that I won't name, but you'd probably work it out. And I used to help people to learn how to use technology. A lot of these people that I was teaching, they were blind later in life, but they weren't tech savvy. So they're learning how to use a computer that they're not fully efficient with, and now they're having to learn to use a tool to help them use that computer. And a lot of them are self-taught. So they don't do things the way that JAWS, which is one of the main screen readers, tells them how to do it. They've just worked out that if they mash these keys, they can get from point A to point B. So a website is not always accessible, even though it's technically accessible. Not everybody's tech savvy. My partner, 50-year-old male who doesn't have a disability, but he's a tradie, does not like technology at all. So I have to do a lot of his tech. We were on holidays. He had to have a Zoom call. The Zoom link was sent to his email address, which he accesses off his phone. That's fine. He went to go to his email on his computer. Needed his password. He didn't know his password. Now, this isn't an accessibility issue, but this is that not everybody is tech savvy, and then you add that accessibility on top. So what he had to do was he had to email me his Zoom link so I could open it on my computer so that he could then access. All right, so we shouldn't take technology for granted. We shouldn't assume that everybody can do things just because they're accessible, because they've been built accessibly, because everybody has a different lived experience. So inclusive user testing. So inclusive design starts with inclusive research, and you can only do inclusive research if you're including people. So inclusive user testing ensures that products work well for all users, especially those with disabilities. But you don't know unless you ask. We can have assumptions. We can have ideas of what people need and what they think and how they use things. I've done hundreds of user sessions and I learn new things every time. I've got screen reader users who listen to their screen reader at lightning speed. It almost sounds like Morse code as opposed to actually words coming out. But this person knows where they are on the screen and they know where to go. I've also got other users who are less tech savvy. So they'll get to something and it'll announce a region and they don't know what that is. So you can't assume, and without you talking to users, you can't know what their experience is and what barriers they're facing with accessing your product, even though it might be built to WCAG standards. Gaining leadership support to include people with disabilities is vital, and it's one of the questions that every time I speak, I always get asked, how do we get leadership buy-in? And apart from aisle 6 at Bunnings with some duct tape and some rope, I'm not sure. It's different every time. So what often happens is you'll get leadership buy-in if a member of your leadership team has a friend with a disability, has a relative with a disability, or has a disability themselves. So that's something that you have to work out at your organisation level. But once you've done that, it's more than just getting people into test. As far as auditors, you need to start speaking to people with disabilities. You need to have a design mindset and a design environment. So the accessibility mindset focuses on respect, relevance, creating welcome and supportive environments and getting meaningful feedback. So there's generally 2 ways of testing that we test now, thanks to COVID. We do in-person testing, but we also do remote testing. So how many people who do user testing were forced to go remote once COVID hit? Yeah. How many people still do mostly remote? How many people do remote testing with users with disabilities? We do. It can be done. There are things that you need to consider, but they're all things that you can learn. So selecting the right participants is key. When you're selecting participants for a general population user testing, you generally have key demographics, right? So you generally go, okay, well, our users are between 25 and 58 and they have dual income, no kids, they have pet dogs, whatever. You get granular with who you want to test. Get granular with who you want to speak to. And then you go, okay, well, we need to get some screen reader users. You'll do. You don't ask them if they use your product. You don't check if they're your actual demographic, you just want someone to test your website. They're testing the website then technically, but not necessarily having context in your product and what they're testing. So with GenPop user testing, you make sure that they're your customer and you're talking to the right people. Then you get somebody who uses a screen magnifier. Well, as long as they can magnify the screen, that's all we care about. You're not getting that fully valuable feedback. So it's important to consider your demographics. Your demographic is not just the disability. Your demographic is a person with disability who would be your customer, because that's where the value of user testing is. Use specialised recruitment channels. I will spruik shamelessly Intopia Connect. We have a panel of about 300, but it's not just us. There are other places that you can recruit people with disabilities. Not a lot of specialised. So quite often you will, if you go to a general recruiter, you will maybe get somebody who, we've had people who have used general recruiters and said they want someone with low vision and got someone with glasses because that's a person self-identified and went, oh, you know, do you have low vision? Yes, because I wear glasses to read, not the extent. So using a recruiter who understands disability and accessibility is also really important. But you can also go disability organisations, have a chat to disability organisations and ask for some people who fit your demographic who might want to come and participate. Facebook groups, different organisations, friends, family, put the word out. Generally, somebody will know someone who has a disability, but also try to match your demographic. And don't just ask John in the back office who happens to use a screen reader, because he's not your customer and he knows your system too well. And he'll build it the way he wants it to make his job easier. Communicate clearly and flexibly. So make sure that you're using plain language in all of your recruitment documents, especially if you're recruiting people who have cognitive disabilities. You need to use simple language. It's also helpful for people that are using screen readers. A lot of our screen reader testing, testers are some of the most intelligent people you'll ever meet. But when you're going through a form and listening to the screen reader, the simple plain language that they can get from point A to point B is a lot easier to complete. If they've got to go through a lot of waffle about what everything's about and really big words, they've gotten bored with your whole study before they actually participate in it. So keep things simple so that everybody can participate and everybody understands what's happening. Keep schedules flexible, which is hard because, you know, when you're running a study, you've got a certain amount of time that you need to have everything done by. But try to understand that people with disability often have different appointments to attend. They're not just sitting around in their houses with their little rug on their knee waiting to come and join your study. So they quite often have medical appointments, and they can often have medical appointments that will pop up just before your study. Having said that, I've found since doing user testing with people with disabilities as opposed to GenPop, we get far fewer no-shows than your GenPop studies. So they're generally more likely to show up. Device use and session setup. All of us have our own choice of our phones. Whose iPhone here? Android? Other ones that aren't, no one carries a phone. So you know how you have your phone set up. You can have an iPhone and someone says, oh, just pop your email or pop your details into my phone. They hand you their iPhone. Slightly different model, it's a slightly different phone, it's a slightly different screen. Android, if someone doesn't give you their actual Android, then you don't know where you're looking because everything's different on them. It's the same for people who are using assistive tech. So where possible, allow people to use their own devices. Not always possible. More possible if you're doing remote testing, and that's one of the good things about remote testing is that people can use their own devices, they can use their own setups. Just because you've got JAWS set up on your computer for testing doesn't mean that it'll have everything set up the way that a user has it set up on their own device. So it could be the way they have grammar set up, the way things are read out, the language, the tone, the speed, all of these things are customized. And if you're using something that isn't customized to your needs, then that also holds up your user testing because it's not quite the same experience. So you could be working through something and really struggling, and it's not because there's a problem with the form, there's a problem with the site, it's just because the screen reader sounds a bit wonky and it's not the same as what you're used to. So that can affect feedback. Also, one thing that I generally recommend is also, if you're working with a screen reader user, don't ask them to slow their screen reader down. That's how they're used to listening to things. That's how they're used to interacting. If you slow it down, it's a lot harder for them to understand where they are, work out what they're doing, and it affects their feedback. And the only reason that they're slowing it down is for you. It's not for them. You can say, that went really fast, can you slow your screen reader down and repeat that? But allow people to use their devices and their setups the way that they would normally use it, because that is what they're comfortable with, and that will mean that you're getting proper feedback on what they're doing. And it gives you the authentic user experience. In-person sessions, so try and accommodate varying screen sizes and things like that. It's not always easy. Often you've got one device, 2 test devices, and you have to take it as it comes. Explain to the person, this is our test device. We've only got the app on this device at the moment. Just let us know if it doesn't match what you would normally have. If they say, oh, well, my screen reader doesn't do this, then you can take that into your synthesis and your reporting and understand that there's a slight difference, and maybe that's what affected the session and not necessarily the build. In-person session, remote sessions. Remote sessions are a lot better for allowing people to use their own devices. They're a bit tricky to set up. So you've got a few things to consider. Teams. A lot of people use Teams. Teams is a bane of my life and my existence. If you have a participant who had a Teams account when they were at uni 5 years ago and they were logged into that Teams account but no longer have access to that email address, they won't be able to get into your Teams meeting. Ask me how I know. If someone's using a screen reader and need to share screen, it doesn't always work. If someone's using a screen reader and a braille display and Teams, does everyone know what a braille display is? Basically like a little box. It's like a little box keyboard that has braille on it. And as your screen reader reads over the text, the little brailles pop up and people can read along with their fingers what's written on the screen. And all it is a box that transfers what's on the screen in text to their fingers. However, if you're testing with Teams and a screen reader and need to share your screen, that is fine. You plug in a braille display and for some reason, the share button disappears. It's good times. Teams also uses a lot of resources, so not everybody has a really super fast, speedy laptop. When you're using a video conferencing tool and assistive tech, it can slow things down and things can really struggle. So you can have them turn their, you can have them turn their camera off just so that it keeps things running smoothly. We find Zoom is a preference, although Zoom, bless their hearts, keep making updates and it's becoming more and more inaccessible. So what we recommend is prior to a session, the week before, a few days before, a day before, do a tech check. Just get the person to jump on a call, make sure that they can share screen, and it also gives you a moment to introduce yourself to the participant. Explain a little bit what you can about the study. You know, we're going to be looking at a shoe retailer. You're just going to pretend that you're buying some shoes. Do you have any questions? Can you share your screen? Thank you. And it's all done. That way you can just check that things are going to work. You're not going to get caught up on the day of your session when you have an hour booked out and half an hour between sessions, and then you lose the first half hour of your session trying to get someone to share their screen and everybody feels bad and uncomfortable. Provide plain language instructions and tech support. So again, use plain language. If you're sending someone a link for them to test, ask if they would like it in email or if they can access the chat. Don't always assume that people can access the chat in Zoom. Screen readers often find it really difficult to pick up links from the chat, and you can't always just click a link from the chat to open it up. So what we often do is we'll email someone the link, they can open it up and have it all ready to go before they share their screen. In-person session logistics. Now, as you can imagine, when you're bringing in somebody who has accessibility requirements, you need to make considerations about the accessibility of the building. So that means that having ramps and lifts, and making sure that Telstra aren't using the wheelchair lift. And apologies, we're in Telstra. I was doing it on a bank, and Telstra were using the wheelchair lift for their equipment because they were working on the building and everything was full, and we couldn't actually get the wheelchair into the building without them moving everything out. So make sure that your wheelchair lift isn't being used as a freight lift. Make sure your wheelchair lift allows somebody who comes with a support worker to stand on the lift with the support worker, because quite often you can get the person on the lift and that is great. And they go up, but they can't actually get off the lift because the buttons are on the inside and they can't press the button. So check the accessibility. So you might have accessibility features in your building, give them a dry run. Check that you have an accessible toilet, and that's a wheelchair accessible toilet, not just an ambulant toilet. So make sure that the floor that you're on or fairly close by, there is a bathroom that somebody can use. Before you start the session, say, would you like to use a bathroom? Especially if it's on a different floor, allow them to use a bathroom, because sometimes toileting, if someone is a wheelchair user, takes a little bit longer. If someone comes in with a service dog, a dog guide or guide dog, guide dog's a brand, and I've had it beaten out of me to say guide dog because I worked for the other organisation, but they're all the same thing. If someone comes in with an assistance animal, ask if the assistance animal needs toileting. Have cool water there for them. Ask the person that ready go, and everybody should know this, don't pat the dog. Unless the person says you can, and quite often they will. And you'll find that assistance dogs, we generally have fairly high expectations of them. They are the naughtiest animals you'll ever meet, and make sure they're not chewing the cord under your desk and all the power goes out. Or as happened to one of my directors a few years ago at Ali Camp, one of the dogs chewed his microphone cord before he was presenting. So they are very, very naughty. So just keep an eye on them, but don't pat them. Plan the session lengths with breaks. Say to people, you know, we're going to go for an hour. We don't have any breaks planned, but if you would like one, let me know. Don't assume people want a break. Don't assume people don't want a break. Don't treat people with disability like children. Treat them like people, and understand that people with disability are people, and some of them are lovely and some of them are not. And some of them you'll get on really good days, and some of them you'll get on really bad days. And it's not because they're a person with disability, it's because they're a person. And sometimes they're just jerks. And that's okay. Be nice to them, be respectful to them. And sometimes they're lovely, and just because they're lovely, they're not an inspiration. They're not there to be the face of every person with that particular disability. They are a person with a level of lived experience. So again, when it comes to testing, don't always test with the same person or the same group of people, because you need different experiences and you need different people's voices. Allow support workers to come into the room, but don't necessarily expect them to. Speak to the person that is your person who's doing the testing with your participant. Don't talk to their support worker instead of. You can still talk to their support worker. You don't have to ignore them completely. But if you need to ask anything, ask it of the participant. If they need the support worker to do something on their behalf, they will communicate that. If you're working with someone who is deaf and you have an interpreter in, and please always get an interpreter if someone needs one. Ask if someone would like an interpreter. Don't assume they definitely want an interpreter, and don't go, look, we don't have budget for an interpreter, so do you mind if I just type stuff and you just type back to me and we'll just conversate that way? Some people will be okay with that, but offer them an interpreter. It's like saying, we're going to do a session, we're going to keep your microphone off the entire time. And I'll have mine off as well. Compensation, feedback and analysis. Respect participant contributions and the feedback. Just because someone has a disability and they have some time to come and talk to you doesn't mean they want to do it for free. You pay your participants for Gen Pop. You need to pay your participants with disabilities. They're bringing in an entire lived experience that you can't get anywhere else. They're bringing in learnings from using their screen readers. They're bringing in learnings from using their tools, and you can ask them things that you won't be able to ask anybody else in relevance to the project. And that's something else I'll touch on in a minute. So compensate them fairly. don't go, oh, I'll give you a $20 gift card for coming in as just a little, if you're giving everybody $20 gift cards, that's fine. But pay them in compensate with whatever you're paying anybody else. Understand that they might have extra travel needs and extra costs related to travel, so be prepared to cover that. And understand if you're able to do it on Zoom, then you don't have to worry about these things. Let them know when you're with your location, taxi ranks. A lot of people travel in by taxi. So there's a taxi rank out the front, or there's a taxi rank 200 metres up the road. Make sure you've got someone who can meet them at the door. And it's very hard because depending on the disability, you won't always know who's coming in to see you, and they won't be able to see you quite often either. So, and just because someone has the dog guide with them doesn't mean that they're your participant, and I've done that before as well. So if you're going to pay in gift card, and some people do prefer to pay in gift card because they might be on the DSP or their finances, every time they make earnings, and these aren't specific earnings, but they need to tell Centrelink, and then it affects their other payments and things like that. So some people go, pay it in a gift card, make sure the gift card is accessible. We use Prezi, and it's just an online thing, and it's accessible from what we've seen. Or pay in cash to their bank account, but allow the person to choose. If you've got the option of both, allow the person to choose. If you've got the option of one, make sure whatever you're doing is accessible. Contextual feedback analysis. So analyse feedback considering each participant's unique experience. Recognising barriers may vary even with similar disabilities. So understand that if you speak to one person with a disability, you've spoken to one person with a disability. And when that person got the disability and how they manage their tech is going to be different every time. So conclusion and call to action. I just got the 5-minute call, so I'm glad I'm at this slide. So inclusive user testing ensures meaningful engagements with users facing accessibility challenges and improving digital experiences. Best practices: recruit varied participants, allowing use of personal tools and fostering respectful environments, which yields better insights. So try to include them. Quite often we have what we call like the top 5 or the magic 5. So someone will come to us and say, we'd like someone who's blind, low vision, dexterity-related disability, hearing if we can. Quite often hearing people go, oh, well, we don't have any videos, so we won't worry about anyone who's deaf. Please remember that deafness, if someone has been profoundly deaf since birth, Auslan is quite often their first language, and Auslan and English don't necessarily translate. So it's not just sound on the screen, it's comprehension of the written word as well. It's like having a second language. Cognitive neurodivergent. I'm also cognitive neurodivergent, so I've forgotten what number I was up to. But generally people come with us for a study, top 5. We want 5 people and we'll cover all of these bases. So then you have to synthesize 5 completely different people with 5 completely different lived experiences into one report. So try to do these studies often so that you build up your own repertoire of, okay, well, the last study I did had the blind guy in and he used JAWS and he said this, like he wanted every image to have an image description, even if it was just a minor image on the page. But he wanted it, and this is actual feedback that I've had once, he wanted it to say, if it was just decorative, he wanted it to say decorative before the image description. Now, I can tell you that 98.9999 infinity% of blind people, if you did that to them, they would hate you, they would hunt you down, they would find you. They don't want that. So you can't take someone's feedback, one person's feedback, and go, oh my God, that's amazing. And I've seen it so many times. I'll run a piece of research and the team will be watching as observers, and someone will make a comment or a suggestion, and the entire team just glows and goes, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And we're like, hold up, wait for the next person, because they're going to say the exact opposite of what this person just said, and you're going to need to work out as a team how to make it work for both people. Integrate inclusive research into your workflows, integrate it into your testing. So if you don't have budget to do 5 people of different disabilities, let alone 5 people of the same disability, try and include someone in your general population testing. Ask if they're a screen reader user. Make sure that your screen readers are accessible. Make sure your NDAs are accessible. But try to include them in your general testing, because you'll start getting that feedback in and you can start building your own repertoire and you can start working out what works with people. And get your support from Intopia or other specialised organisations such as disability support groups, Facebook groups and things like that. Don't continually bug Facebook groups. They start to hate you. They don't hate me yet, but wherever, you know, we've walked a fine line on some. It's like, hey, you got someone else. But put it out there. Let people know that you are looking for people with disability. That also gives you credibility within your organisation, because people with disability know that you are actively seeking their opinions and seeking their feedback. And that's everything from me. Thank you all for listening. Questions if you've got them, and enjoy your afternoon tea.